So I just opened up the plug for the hydraulics, and I'm draining that right now. As you can see in the cap right here, it's pretty thick and gooey. So there's I'm feeling like bits of shavings in here. So I don't know if I've got something wrong with the pump in there, or just that this hasn't been cleaned in such a long time. I don't know. I'm going to do a little research and figure out how to flush the system. I think that I read somewhere that you can put kerosene in, but I need to research that more before I do that. But I will go ahead and flush out the hydraulic system and transmission before I fully take this back up north, just to make sure that I've got that all flushed out and taken care of. But yeah, there was quite a bit of sediment here in the bottom of the cap, and it's, like I said, pretty thick. So it's good that we're changing this. Probably should have been done a long time ago. So what we're going to do is go ahead and drain the hydraulic, and then I'm going to take off the right hand trumpet housing, since it's leaking not necessarily at the lift point, but actually on the housing going into the between the trumpet housing and the body. So let me show you that real quick. So here on the back housing, and there's a name for this part right here. I've heard it referred to as a trumpet housing, and so it's easier for me to remember that, and that's what I keep calling it. But down here you will see that there is a pin that's part of the 3-point system, and it is really leaking around the connection here, and it's only on one side. There's a pin on the other side. Let me get you over here without making you too camera sick. There's another pin here on this side that is not leaking at all. So we've got to get in here and replace this gasket on this part here. And the only way you can get in here to take this part off is to remove the trumpet housing, and on the inside there's a kingpin that is connecting that on the inside. So I've got the engine hoist connected to the end of the trumpet, and then I move the blocks so that the trumpet is actually free and the support is more under the the tractor itself. And I'm shaking it now, and it's pretty solid. So I feel comfortable with taking this trumpet off. I know it's going to get very heavy at the end. I'm going to try and prop something underneath it, so as these bolts come out, it just doesn't drop straight down. But that's what we're going to do now, is go ahead and take this trumpet housing off. Here is the inside of the trumpet housing, and let me get the flashlight out of there. And there's the castle nut that needs to be taken off, and it's got a cotter pin on this side, as you can see. And so I need to remove that pin and to take this off so I can put a gasket on the other side. And then when I go to put this back in, I've actually seen people put sealant on this, and I'll do some research and figure out what I can put in here that I'm not worried about it decaying with the oil and getting into the hydraulic fluid. Do some research on that. But that's the whole reason I took this trumpet housing off, was to get to that pin so that I can take off the, so I can get to this kingpin, castle nut. I'm not sure what exactly the official term is. We'll call it a castle nut. And to get to that, to take the pin out to replace the gasket on the other side. So that's our game plan tonight. It's going all right. So let me finish that up, and we will put this back together hopefully tonight, if not castle nuts on the back side of the lift pin. And let me put this down. And taking this out. Well, that would explain a lot. I just took this off, And this is all that's left of the gasket is right here. And that's exactly where it was leaking. Is leaking right around this area right here, and there's no gasket left. Interesting. So we'll get this surface cleaned up, and then I'll finish taking the paint off of here while it's off. It's pretty easy to do that here now. And then I'll put a new gasket on this, and then put this back, and hopefully that'll take care of the leak here. But you know, I know it's a major part of the lift system to, you know, to have this lift pin right here. But boy, that's a lot of work just to get a nut off on the inside. So, all right, it's done, taken care of. So we'll get this cleaned up and get a new gasket on. I've got this all cleaned up, ready to put on the gasket and put this back on. This is for the lifting pin. So I've got the trumpet housing all cleaned up, as you can see here. Got rid of most of the old paint. Got a little bit more to clean up, but as far as the underside right here, where it's going to be difficult to reach under there to finish scraping, I figured since I had it off, I'll go ahead and scrape most of it off right here. So, alright, let me get this lifting pin on, and then over here, turn the light around. I went ahead and cleaned up these edges here, made sure that they're nice and clean so that when I put the gasket back on, it'll seal up. So I was mostly concerned with the bottom. I don't think it's gonna, you know, leak too much up top, but I mean, it's all clean. But I just made sure that it was really clean and got any oil off it, any residue, scraped it, light sanding. So let's get this trumpet housing back on. Alright, today we're going to go ahead and take out the hydraulic pump and rebuild that. To gain access to the internal portions, you have to take off these inspection covers. There's one on each side. This side's got the dipstick, the other side's got the actual engagement of the PTO. So what we have to do is go ahead and take out all these bolts going around this top casing here, with the exception of 4 bolts. There's 2 on this side and 2 on the other that hold part of the hydraulic system in place. But the actual pump sits down here in the bottom down here, and there's 8 bolts that hold that in place. It's right next to where your drain plug is for your hydraulic system. So what we need to do is remove a particular part, and I'll show you that in a second, before we actually pull anything. So before you pull this cover, you need to take off the 2 inspection covers and then pull a valve pump. You need to take that off before you can remove this portion here. And then once you get that out, then we need to come around here and take off our PTO. And there's several videos out there on doing all of this. I'm just showing you the process that I'm doing here. And so here's the other side, the other inspection cover. Down inside here, I don't know if I'm able to show this or not, but there is a part, the valve pump, that we need to take off first before we actually take off this cover right here. So let me go ahead and get this disassembled and put the pump on a bench to at least clean it. We're not actually doing a complete rebuild on it. We are going to go ahead and replace a couple of key parts and make sure that it doesn't need to be taken apart anytime soon. But I had no problems with the hydraulics on this tractor. It was running fine, lifted everything that it needed to lift. I just figured I'm at this point here, I might as well go ahead and clean it, give it a good cleaning, since all of the hydraulic fluid had a bunch of sludge in it, and we're just going to clean everything. So that's what we're going to do today. I got the hydraulic pump out, but not the way I had intended to take it out. I was going to take this top cover off and lift it off, but I could not break the seal on that for anything. I heated it up. You know, I even hit it with a metal hammer just to see if I could break it. Not break the casing, but at least break the seal. No good. I tried to get in there with some chisels and still couldn't get in there. So that seal is really strong. So what I ended up doing was just taking the pump out from below, but I wanted to take everything out to clean it. But since I couldn't get in there to, or excuse me, get this portion of it off, I said I'm just going to leave it. Now what I wanted to show you when I took the top portion out is on either side of this pump valve right here, there's two levers that come down from the top. You need to disconnect these two connections before you can pull this out or drop the pump itself. So I had to pull the PTO, and the PTO goes through here. I got that PTO out, wasn't a problem. Couldn't get the top off. And so I ended up having to just drop the pump, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that you need to disengage this top section from these two connections going into the valve pump. Otherwise, you're going to break it taking it out. And as you can see here, this is one of the main reasons I wanted to take this pump out and clean it. It's just so full of sludge, and I'm sure that it's down all in the pistons and just really dirty. So again, it functioned fine. However, it was just hasn't probably been clean. I think this is all original. I don't think this has been taken apart, just based upon this not coming off. And then even the pump was a little hard to get off. I had to heat the seal up on that and give it a couple of good whacks. But I just wanted to clean this, so let me go ahead and take this apart as far as I can without doing too much damage. But yeah, you can see right here that all this stuff is just going to go right back into the cylinders, and we just want to clean, that's all. So let me give this thing a good cleaning and I'll get back with you. Okay, so I've got this pretty well cleaned up. I've got a little bit more to do on the cylinders on the side, but all of the sludge that was down in here, it's all clean. It's pretty good. And then I cleaned up the edges where the gasket's going to go back on. But what I'm going to do now is replace a couple of parts. So there is a piston valve here in the front that just slides right out. And because of where the pump is, I figured it'd be better to go ahead and change any part that I can physically put my hands on now, instead of putting it back in and having an issue later. Again, I wasn't having any problems with the hydraulics. Just kind of want to clean it up as best I can with what I know. So we'll take out the piston valve here. I'll put it aside. I do have a replacement part here that's brand new. We'll put that back in, and so that just slides right here. And this is again the two forks that were coming off of the top cylinder was fitting on here. This is what we had to pull apart that it connected to, so that's that part. And then we have a plug here, and I don't know the official name of it. I can go get the book and look. 11/16 wrench. I did loosen it earlier, so we can take this out. Again, another part that can go bad. Now, one of the things that I did see in a couple other videos, we'll pull that out, and that's what that looks like, is that with this being inside here, the only way to get to this is that people have had to put this down so I can do this, is take a wrench and cut it, and then just take little baby tiny steps here to get that piece out. So it's better that we take it out now so there's not an issue later. And again, I've got a replacement part here that'll go inside. Now I probably should go ahead and clean that, so when I clean this other cylinder, I'll clean that as well. So I'll take this back out. So I have two new parts there. Now what we need to clean is the cylinders on this side. I've already taken the parts out on this side, and we're going to take this side out here. So I'll show you what has to be done. And again, it's probably full of sludge, and we just want to clean that all out. It's pretty simple. 11/16 inch wrench, and it should, yep. Take this off here, and I've got a paper towel down here on the floor that I'll be putting everything on. And then this is a retaining cap that goes on top here. And then I'll take a rag. You just want to clean up some of this stuff here. It's, again, full of sludge and different stuff. So you'll notice that these, right now, these are stuck down. And it's probably because there's a bunch of stuff in there and they won't pop up. So I'm just going to take a small screwdriver and just kind of pry up in here just to break that seal on there. Took me a little bit on the other ones, but and just work its way up. Yeah, I can see a whole bunch of sludge and stuff in there. Pry this cap off. And again, I'll place these pieces down on the paper towel here. Let me just bring this up just a little bit so you can see a little bit better right here. So we have the top cap or plug. Set that down, and then you can take out what you can with your fingers, or you need a pair of needle nose pliers. But then there's a spring that goes inside. I'm going to reach in here. There's another plug. And then when there's a rod. Reach down. The other one's a little bit further down. Kind of hard to reach, but let's see if I can get it here. There's a spring, another small spring. And there's one more plug, but you gotta reach down there and get it. And then there's one more plug. So let me put these on the paper towel, and I'm putting them on the, laying them out exactly how they came out so I can remember how they go back in. So let me lay these out real quick. Alright, I just wanted to quickly show the order in which these go back into the cylinder. Hopefully if somebody's looking up on YouTube and wondering how the parts go back into a Ford 9N hydraulic cylinder, this is how it is. So we have, we're going to start from the bottom up. So we have a small plug here, and then the spring fits on that, then the rod. But the rod will go all the way through, so you could put the rod in first. I don't think it really matters, but we'll try and stand this up and assemble it here. So we have a bottom plug, a small spring, a rod, and then we have a larger plug that fits down inside there. Then we have a spring, and then we have a cap that fits on top of that. So that's the order of putting it back together in the cylinder. So to put this back together, to help guide everything, I'm going to take this pin first. I'm going to slide that in and put that in. Just wait until it fits in there. And you can take your finger and push it down in there and make sure it's there. And then everything else will drop on top of that. We'll take the smaller plug. Actually, I'll use my needle nose to line that up. That drops in. And then we take the small spring, put Put that right over, and that drops in. We'll take the large plug, that slides in. The large spring should line up right in there, and actually it does. I just pushed it in there too far. Okay, so that lines up, and then we have the top plug, and that'll fit right in there. And then the nice thing of it is you can see that since everything's cleaned up, that the top plug here doesn't want to stay down. Whereas before, I had a hard time getting it out. So this actually this bounces back up. So that's pretty good. That lets me know that it's got good movement down in there. And then what we'll do is we'll assemble the other side here, just like we did this. And then once that's all put together, then we'll come back and we'll put the cap on here to hold both pins down. So that's how you rebuild the hydraulic pump on a Ford 9N. So I'll do the other side and we'll be ready to put this back into the chassis. Alright, well, we've got the new brakes on, the differential adjusted, the hydraulic pump cleaned and rebuilt, put back together. So the rear end of the chassis is completely redone. So let's go ahead and get started on putting this engine back together and see if we can't have a tractor here soon.